Hello, we're Mo2. We're two coaches, both named Maureen, who offer tips and tricks in how to approach challenges in life and conundrums in life. And so today we were just thinking about asking for help and how lots of people get a bit tripped up, us included, when we think about doing that. Maybe because, if I speak from my own perspective, maybe because I feel like I should be able to do it myself, or I should already know that, or like I don't want to bother someone. And in fact, if we switch perspectives, we could look at it as connecting with people, building a team, offering something to someone, offering learning, offering to work together on whatever the challenge is. And so there's all sorts of different ways we can look at that 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 conundrum, or that concept of asking for help, and switch it around. And so yeah, over to you, Mo.
Yeah, thank you. What just came up for me are two things. One of the things that I often hear there where people ask for help and then people don't do it the way they would have done it or I would have done it. And so it's kind of like that feeling of they just don't know how to do it. So it's easier to do it myself. So when we ask for help, there's the opportunity to kind of broaden our own way of looking at things, to allow other people to give by doing it differently, because then it kind of opens that door. But it also makes me think of another thing, and I can't remember where I heard it recently, but it just made so much sense to me. And that's, the infinity loop that goes kind of like a number 8. There's the idea of completing the infinity loop. Many people are helpers and they love to offer help, but it's not so easy to receive help. And so receiving help completes the infinity loop. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Well,
image seems flow.
yeah. Well, there's what I was hearing you say is there's the receiving and the giving, and we're comfortable giving, not so much receiving. But then there's the asking before receiving. And it's almost as though maybe what I'm hearing you say is that it's the anticipation of the possibility of receiving that gets us into a bit of a holding back against asking. I guess what comes to my mind is that I think there also might be I can do it myself, I don't need your help, as well as you might do it differently, and I have to tolerate that difference and relinquish my own sense of control over whatever it is.
Yes. And oh my gosh, that just what it did was it brought up another story that a number of years ago, this might just seem totally out there, and yet it fits. I was at some relatives on my husband's side, and we were having dinner, and after dinner, I just I just started helping to clean up. And the husband said, "You don't have to do that, and that my wife will." And that was kind of like, it did something to me. It made me uncomfortable. Like, you have to do all the work, and here we are receiving all this nice dinner. And I said, "Oh, no, 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 no. I'm happy to help." And he said, "No, sit down." And so I sort of slunk back and I sat down, really uncomfortable. But what I realized with that was my help was seen as being intrusive. And I hadn't thought of it that way before. So there's so many different aspects to asking for and offering help that can come up. Who knew?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and the idea that maybe that particular story brings up for me is the concept that that particular individual, or maybe his wife, were perhaps somewhat particular and controlling about the way they want stuff to be done, and or the way things should be done, and there were rules to follow that weren't your rules.
Yeah. So yeah. And it exactly when it makes me think of, when we have people over for dinner, this is how we gift them by preparing and serving and cleaning up, and it's kind of like a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in a sense, maybe I was rejecting.
Who knows, right?
Who,
But that
yeah,
wasn't
who
your
knows?
intent.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. And so our intention
Yeah.
is not.
And
Yeah.
and so when we think about asking for help,
Yes.
um, uh, what what are a few tips that you'd have for folks?
One is be specific if you're asking for help, especially if you're starting, is to ask and be specific and ask somebody who will actually follow through. And if there's a time frame to get something done that you'd like, to include that time frame. And that way the person who you're asking can let you know whether they can complete whatever it is you're asking for in that time.
And another point might be, indicate what's important to you about this thing, whatever this ask is, because maybe you are very particular about something and it's going to drive the other person crazy, so they should say no. And it's, being upfront about what you're particular about or what's important for you in this thing can be really helpful in the ask, so the person can actually decide, can they meet your objectives or your whatever you're anticipating, or is it just going to cause friction and they don't want that? And it's okay for them to say no, right?
Yes, and that's two points come from this, Maureen, is if we're asking for help, be prepared to have somebody say no.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not about us. It's not against us. And so just what you're bringing up is it's the really allowing the person to make an informed decision. Can I or can't I? Yes or no. The other is, and this is probably almost enough for right now, can I accept help that in something that might be different from the way I would do it or approach it? And that's an important question to ask, because if it's a no for you, then acknowledge that and do it yourself, but know that you're doing it from that place rather than being resentful towards somebody else for not offering help or not helping.
And that sort of highlights the concept of, you have to be aware of your own needs and your own sensitivities, and and particularities, and be honest with yourself about those. If I say, well, can you help me do this? It doesn't really matter how you do this. And it really does matter to me. It's going to cause a lot of friction, and it's not going to turn out the way that you would typically want it to. So there's an element of integrity and honesty and self-awareness that's important whenever you ask for help.
Yes. Yeah. And so it would be really fantastic. I'm curious now, like what holds our listeners, what holds you back from asking for help? We'd love to hear from you. And maybe there's some tips that you use that have worked really well in asking for help. We'd love to hear about that too.
Yeah, so share your tips and share your if you're feeling comfortable, share your trepidation with asking for help.
Yeah. And
And
subscribe to our channel.
so until next time, you can contact me at maureenmayhew.com, and you, Mo?
At Caley-Verdonk.com. We'll see ya.
All right. Have a great week.